I came home on leave with a 4-day window and a short list. Pick up Dad's flag from the hall closet. Grab the old service binder he kept in the den. Meet the insurance agent. That was it. I wasn't there to fight. I wasn't there to reopen old arguments. I just wanted the things that were mine and to get back to Fort Meade before Monday morning formation. The house looked the same from the street. Same shutters. Same maple tree out front. The grass was cut tighter than Dad ever kept it. Lydia liked things neat. Clean lines. Market ready even when nothing was for sale. I parked at the curb. She'd taken over the driveway months ago, said it made more sense since she lived closer. I didn't argue then. I wasn't planning to argue now. When I walked up the front steps, the first thing I noticed was the new keypad lock. Not the old brass deadbolt Dad installed in the 90s. This one was brushed steel modern and clearly not installed for my convenience. I rang the bell. Lydia opened the door halfway and didn't step aside. She had that tight smile she uses at open houses. The one that says everything is fine, even when it isn't. You're not allowed in the house until you apologize. That was it. No build-up. No raised voice. Just policy. I waited for the punchline. There wasn't one. Apologize for what I kept my voice level. No reason to give the neighbors a show. For the refinance. For acting like you get final say just because you wear a uniform. There it was. The refinance conversation had been dragging on for months. She wanted to pull equity out of the house. Rates had dipped. The market was up. In her world, that meant opportunity. In mine, it meant risk attached to the only thing our parents left behind. The house was in both our names. Tenants in common. 50-50. We signed the probate paperwork together. No one outranked anyone. I didn't say no to you, I said. I said no to the loan. You don't trust me. This isn't about trust. She leaned against the doorframe like she had time all day. You disappear for 20 years and then you show up and block plans. That's not how family works. I didn't disappear. I deployed. There's a difference. I looked past her shoulder. I could see the hallway. The wall where Dad's shadow box hung. His medals, his unit patch from Vietnam. I'd asked her not to move it. She hadn't. That was something. I'm here to pick up Dad's flag and the service binder, I said. That's it. You can have those, she replied. After you apologize. It would have been easy to laugh. The absurdity of being carded at my own front door. But she wasn't joking. I own half this house. I've paid half the taxes since Mom passed. My name is on the deed. None of that seemed to matter in that moment. I could have pushed the door. Legally, I had the right. I could have called the sheriff and asked them to explain co-ownership to my sister on her own porch. I could have escalated. Instead, I stepped back. You changed the locks. For security, she said. You're not here. I'm here now. Then fix this. Fix this. Meaning, sign the refinance. Meaning, apologize for refusing. A car drove past. Slow. Curious. I lowered my voice even more. I'm not apologizing for protecting an asset. You're protecting your pride. I let that sit. I've commanded teams overseas. I've handled breach reports that could have compromised systems most people don't even know exist. None of that prepared me for arguing about a mortgage on a suburban porch. I'll come back later, I said, not without an apology. The door stayed half open, just wide enough to make the point. I nodded once, turned, and walked down the steps. My boots hit the sidewalk harder than I meant them to. I don't slam doors. I don't yell. In the Army, if you lose control, you lose credibility. Same rule applies in real life. I got into my car and shut the door. For a second, I just sat there. The house sat behind me like it always had. Same brick, same windows, different rules. My phone buzzed before I even pulled away. Text from Lydia. You don't get to make decisions alone. I typed back, neither do you. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. This isn't about money. I stared at that one. It was absolutely about money. Equity. Control. Leverage. But it was also about something older. Something that started long before interest rates and housing markets. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled away from the curb and drove 2 blocks down. Parked in front of the elementary school we both went to. The playground looked smaller than I remembered. Everything does when you come back with adult eyes. I called the law office that handled probate. Collins and Mercer, Adrian Holloway. I need to speak with Mr. Mercer if he's available. I waited. Listened to the hold music. Neutral piano. The kind that makes you think about paperwork. He picked up. Lieutenant Colonel. What can I do for you? Straight to the point. I appreciated that. I have a co-ownership issue, I said. My sister changed the locks on the property. She's conditioning access on an apology. Silence for half a second. Not surprise. Just recalculating. You're both on title, he said. She can't legally exclude you. I don't want a patrol car on the lawn. Understood. He asked a few practical questions. Was there a written agreement and any outstanding liens, number mortgage paid off? Yes. If you can't agree on use or financial decisions, your remedy is partition, he said. Either by agreement or court. I don't want to go to court. Then you either negotiate or you sell. Sell. The word landed cleaner than I expected. If I list the property, I asked, can she stop it? She can object. She can delay. But ultimately, no. You own half. You have the right to force sale. It's expensive to fight. I looked at the steering wheel. At my reflection faint in the windshield. Email me the steps, I said. Of course. We hung up. I didn't sit there debating. I didn't rehearse a speech. I opened my contacts and scrolled past Lydia's name. I tapped a different one. Caroline Reyes. Independent broker. Not affiliated with my sister's agency. I'd met her once at a veterans housing seminar. Straightforward. No nonsense. Oh. She answered on the second ring. Caroline, this is Adrian Holloway. I need to list a property in Fairfax. Today. A pause then. Okay. Tell me what's going on. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The house wasn't visible from where I was parked. Just rooftops and sky. I co-own it, I said. And I'm done negotiating at the front door. She didn't laugh. She didn't ask for drama. She asked for the address. I gave it to her. We can have photos scheduled by tomorrow, she said. You understand it may get tense. It already is. All right, she replied. Send me the deed and I'll draft the listing agreement. I ended the call. 4 days of leave suddenly had a different purpose. I put the car in drive and headed toward the copy shop to scan the paperwork I kept in my glove compartment. Deed, tax records, insurance declarations. I don't travel without documentation. Old habit. By the time I parked, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Lydia. If you think you can just push me around, you're wrong. I read it once. Then I stepped out of the car, locked it, and walked inside to make copies of a house I hadn't been allowed to enter that morning. I stood at the copy machine feeding the deed through watching my own name slide under the glass like proof I wasn't imagining any of this. Adrian Holloway. 50% ownership. The paper came out warm. Real. Legal. Boring. Exactly how I like things. The tension on that porch didn't start with a refinance form. It didn't even start when our parents passed. It started a long time ago, back when Lydia and I were still sharing a bathroom and fighting over who used all the hot water. Lydia is 3 years older. In our house, that meant she was in charge by default. She picked the TV shows. She picked the radio station. She picked which side of the car we sat on. I left at 18 for basic training. She stayed for community college. That's where the split happened. I went to Georgia, then Texas. Then wherever the Army sent me. Lydia stayed in Virginia. She got her real estate license at 23. She knew every family on our block. She could tell you who refinanced, who divorced, who was upside down on their mortgage. When Mom had surgery in 2009, Lydia was the one in the waiting room. I was on rotation overseas and called in at 0300 local time to get updates. When Dad's blood pressure started acting up, Lydia drove him to appointments. I sent money and flew in when I could. No one said it outright, but the narrative settled in. Lydia was present. I was distant. At holidays, relatives would hug her first. You're such a good daughter. Then they'd turn to me. Still in the Army like it was a phase. Dad never treated me like that. He understood deployment. He understood absence with purpose. But he didn't correct anyone either. He wasn't a man who liked to referee. After Mom passed, Lydia started spending more nights at the house. Said it made sense. Less commute. Dad liked the company. I didn't argue. I was stationed in Maryland by then, about an hour and change away. I came on weekends when I wasn't on duty. When Dad died, we handled the estate cleanly. No drama. The house was paid off. The will split everything evenly. Tenants in common. Straight down the middle. At the probate meeting, Lydia squeezed my hand and said we'd keep the house in the family. Said it would always be there. I believed her. For the first year, things were calm. We split taxes. Split maintenance. She handled the lawn and day-to-day upkeep since she was closer. I transferred half the costs every quarter. Simple. Then the market climbed. Suddenly the house wasn't just sentimental. It was an asset. Lydia started talking numbers. Do you know what homes on this block are selling for? We're sitting on 6 figures in equity. It's just smart to leverage it. Leverage is a word that sounds strategic until you're the one being leveraged. She sent spreadsheets. Comparable sales. Mortgage rate projections. She had it all mapped out: cash out, refinance, small investment property in Loudoun County, rental income by year 2. It wasn't a reckless plan. It was just a risky one. If the market dips, I asked during one of our calls. It won't. That's not an answer. You're always worst case scenario. I work in worst case scenarios. It's kind of the job. When I told her I wasn't comfortable signing, she went quiet in a way that wasn't calm. It was contained. So that's it, she asked. You just veto it. I'm not vetoing. I'm declining. You don't trust me. I don't want debt tied to Dad's house. It's our house. I know. That conversation repeated in different forms for months. Emails, calls, texts, each one slightly sharper than the last. The first time she used the phrase, "You act like you outrank everyone," I almost laughed. Rank has nothing to do with siblings. There's no chain of command in a kitchen built in 1987. But to her, it wasn't about policy. It was about authority. She'd been the one here. The one with receipts from doctor visits. The one who knew the plumber's name. The one who handled estate paperwork in person while I scanned documents from a base office. From her perspective, I'd show up with opinions and leave again. From mine, I was protecting the one thing we didn't need to gamble. The day she changed the locks, she texted me a picture of the new keypad. For security, she wrote. I stared at it longer than I should have. It wasn't about security. It was about territory. I asked for the access code. She said she'd give it to me once we're aligned. Aligned. That was her word for compliant. I didn't push then. I told myself it wasn't worth a fight over a door code. I had work. I had a team prepping for a cybersecurity audit. I had bigger things to manage, but every time I thought about the house, I pictured that keypad. Clean, neutral, controlled. Standing on the porch that morning being told to apologize wasn't an isolated incident. It was the endpoint of months of pressure. You disappear for 20 years and then show up blocking plans. That's what she said. I didn't disappear. I built a career. I sent money home when the roof needed repair. I took emergency leave when Dad was hospitalized. I showed up in uniform to his funeral and carried his flag. But absence leaves space for stories. And Lydia had been telling one for a while. In her version, she carried the family. I visited. Back at the copy shop, I stapled the documents together and slid them into a folder. Clean. Organized. Controlled. My phone buzzed again. Group text this time. Our cousin Lydia. Lydia Adrian is trying to force a sale. Aunt, what, why? Cousin, isn't that the house your dad built the deck on? I didn't answer. I could have written a paragraph explaining co-ownership rights. Could have cited Virginia Code on Partition. Could have defended myself. Instead, I put the folder in my bag and walked out into the parking lot. The sky was clear. The kind of afternoon where nothing dramatic looks like it's happening. Caroline texted, "Send the documents when you can. We'll draft the listing agreement tonight." I unlocked my car and sat behind the wheel. If Lydia believed I was just posturing, she was about to learn the difference between talk and paperwork. I started the engine and pulled into traffic, the house sitting somewhere behind me unchanged from the outside and already shifting on paper. I pulled into the parking lot outside my hotel and emailed the deed to Caroline before I even grabbed my overnight bag. The subject line read, "Fairfax property, ready to list." No emotion. Just logistics. Caroline replied within 10 minutes. Got it. I'll draft the agreement. We'll need signatures from both owners. If she resists, Your attorney can initiate partition. Let's see how she responds first. That last sentence mattered. Let's see how she responds. There was still a narrow window where this could be handled without turning into a courtroom file number. I carried my bag inside and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the beige carpet like it might offer commentary. Instead, my phone buzzed again. Lydia, what exactly are you doing? Listing the house, I typed back. You can't do that without me. I can list my interest. Or we can sell it together. This is insane. Number. Locking me out was insane. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Reappeared. You're being dramatic. I set the phone down. In the army, when someone accuses you of overreacting, it usually means you've drawn a boundary they didn't expect. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't threatening. I was following process. An hour later, Mr. Mercer called. I understand you've contacted a broker, he said. Yes, your sister reached out to my office. That didn't surprise me. She wants to know if you can force a sale. I assume you told her the same thing you told me. I did. And she believes you're doing this out of spite. I let out a slow breath. Spite would be taking her to court tomorrow. He didn't disagree. Legally, he continued, you have leverage. But if she refuses to cooperate with listing or showings, it becomes complicated. Complicated how? Delay. Not prevention. Delay is a tactic. In military operations and in family arguments. If she delays, I said we file partition. That is your right. Rights are useful only if you're willing to exercise them. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and reread the refinance proposal Lydia had sent months earlier. Projected rent income, adjustable rate terms, estimated appreciation. All neatly organized. What wasn't in the spreadsheet was the part where interest rates rise, or tenants stop paying, or markets correct, or one co-owner wants out. It wasn't a reckless plan. It was just built on everything going right. That evening, Lydia sent another message. Dad would never have wanted this. I stared at that one longer. Dad never wanted us fighting over paperwork. He also never wanted debt hanging over his head. He paid that mortgage off early and told me once, standing in the driveway, that owning something outright meant no one could tell you when to leave. I typed back. Dad didn't believe in borrowing against what you already own. She didn't respond. The next morning, Caroline emailed the listing agreement draft. Clean, straightforward, standard commission. Market-appropriate pricing based on comps. Slightly under peak value for a faster close. I scanned it once, twice, then signed electronically. She sent it to Lydia. Silence for 3 hours. Then my phone rang. Not a text. A call. I answered. What are you doing? Lydia's voice wasn't yelling. It was controlled, which was worse. I'm selling an asset I co-own. You blindsided me. You changed the locks. That was about security. This is about ownership. A pause. You know what this looks like, she asked. It looks like you don't care about this family. I care enough not to gamble it. You don't even live here. That doesn't change the deed. You've always done this, she said. You leave, and then you come back with rules. I leaned against the hotel desk. I didn't come back with rules. I said no to a loan. You don't get to say no by yourself. I didn't. I said no to signing my name. There it was. The heart of it. She didn't want partnership. She wanted alignment. If you go through with this, she said, you're burning a bridge. Then stop pouring gasoline. Silence stretched on the line. You think because you're a lieutenant colonel, you get final authority? I think because my name is on the deed, I get equal authority. The words hung between us. You're overreacting, she said finally. I thought about the porch, about the door, about the phrase you're not allowed. I'm reacting proportionally. She hung up. 5 minutes later, Caroline texted. She hasn't signed yet. I reminded her of the legal position. Good, I replied. The next 2 days were a lesson in controlled escalation. Lydia emailed the broker arguing the list price was too low. Caroline countered with comps. Lydia suggested waiting until spring. Caroline pointed out market volatility. Lydia floated the idea of buying me out eventually. Eventually doesn't pay current taxes. On the 3rd day, Lydia forwarded an email from a lender she'd been speaking with. We can still refinance. There's time. I read it once and closed it. This wasn't about refinancing anymore. It was about whether I was going to accept being told I needed permission to enter something I legally owned. That afternoon, Mr. Mercer sent a formal letter to Lydia outlining partition rights under Virginia law. Calm language. No threats. Just options. Sell voluntarily. or litigate. Litigation meant months, court costs, public filings. Voluntary sale meant paperwork. Lydia called again. You're actually serious? Yes. You would take me to court, if I have to. You'd drag our family into that. I didn't start dragging. Another pause. You're really willing to lose this house over pride. I stood by the hotel window looking at a row of identical sedans in the parking lot. It's not pride, I said. It's boundaries. The word felt heavier than it should have. You're making a mistake, she said. Then it'll be mine. She exhaled sharply and ended the call. An hour later, Caroline texted. She signed the listing agreement. No exclamation points, no commentary, just confirmation. The property would go live in 48 hours. I closed my laptop and leaned back in the chair. The refinance argument had started as a family disagreement. It was now a legal matter with timelines and signatures attached. Outside the hotel hallway was quiet. My leave days were shrinking. I checked my email one more time before shutting everything down for the night. From Caroline photographer scheduled. Lockbox installation pending access. Pending access. I stared at that phrase, then picked up my phone and dialed Lydia again. It rang twice before she answered. We'll need access for photos, I said. She didn't answer right away. I'll think about it, she replied. The line went quiet. I ended the call and drove back toward Maryland before sunrise, the highway nearly empty and my phone quiet for once. By the time I pulled through the gate at Fort Meade, the guard scanned my ID and waved me through like any other morning. No drama, no emotional negotiations, just process. I parked outside our building and headed in. The hallway smelled like burnt coffee and printer toner. Familiar. Controlled. At 800, I was in the conference room, briefing my team on a network vulnerability flagged overnight. 60 personnel assigned to my unit. Civilian contractors, junior officers, enlisted specialists. Different personalities. Same mission. Here's what we know, I said, tapping the screen. Here's what we don't. We isolate, we assess, and we move. No one questioned whether I had the authority to make that call. No one asked me to apologize before entering the room. We ran through contingencies, assigned responsibilities, set deadlines. It was clean, direct, structured. During a short break, Captain Morales leaned over. You look like you didn't sleep much, ma'am. I didn't, I replied. Everything okay? Family paperwork. He nodded in sympathy. In the Army, family paperwork can mean anything from custody battles to probate disputes. No one asks for details unless you offer them. I'll have the updated report by noon, he said. I know you will. That's the thing about command. It's not volume. It's clarity. You say what needs to be done and people execute because the roles are defined. Family doesn't have defined roles. It has history. At lunch, I stepped outside with my phone and checked messages. Lydia had sent one at 10:17 a.m. You're humiliating me in front of my own clients. I stared at it. The listing wasn't live yet. Only she and the broker knew, which meant the humiliation wasn't public. It was personal. I typed back, it's business. This is not business. It became business when you changed the locks. A minute passed. You're overreacting to one comment. It wasn't one comment. It was a pattern. I didn't send that. I didn't need to. Caroline called instead. Quick update, she said. Your sister agreed to provide access tomorrow at noon. She's not happy. She doesn't need to be. I'll keep it professional, Caroline replied. Just a heads up, if she obstructs the photographer, we document everything. Understood. Also pricing. Based on comps, we can list slightly under peak to encourage multiple offers. Fast or close. I want efficient, I said. Not theatrical. I can do efficient. After the call, I leaned against the brick wall outside the building and looked across the parking lot. I've been deployed to places where decisions had real consequences, not emotional consequences, operational ones. When you choose a path, you commit. Selling the house wasn't an emotional reaction anymore. It was a decision. Later that afternoon, I sat in on a leadership seminar for junior officers. Topic: managing conflict without escalation. The instructor, a colonel with 30 years in, said something simple. If you don't define your boundaries, someone else will define them for you. I didn't write it down. I didn't need to. Back in my office, I pulled up the original refinance proposal again. I reviewed it like a risk assessment. Variable rate exposure, shared liability, reduced liquidity, No exit clause without penalty. Emotion removed the numbers didn't justify the risk. My phone buzzed again. Lydia, you didn't have to go nuclear. Selling a jointly owned asset isn't nuclear. It's legal. You could have talked to me. I did. For months. You never tried to understand my side. I set the phone down. Understanding her side didn't mean signing paperwork I wasn't comfortable with. At 1700, I wrapped up the day and headed to my car. On the drive home, I passed neighborhoods that looked exactly like ours. Two-story colonials. Fresh mulch. For sale signs in a few yards. Real estate is emotional until it isn't. That evening, Caroline sent over the final listing details. Square footage verified. Roof replaced in 2016. HVAC updated. Hardwood floors throughout. Deck built by owner, she'd included that line. I didn't ask her to, but I didn't tell her to remove it either. Tomorrow's photos would make it official. Lydia called again around 9 p.m. You're really doing this, she said. Yes. You're going to regret it. Maybe. That house is the last thing tying us to Mom and Dad. The house isn't the tie, I replied. We are. That's convenient for you to say. It's accurate. Silence filled the space between us. You've always thought in black and white, she continued. Orders, protocol, right and wrong. And you've always thought in leverage. That's not fair. Neither was locking me out. She exhaled sharply. You could still stop this. I don't want to. Another long pause. I'll let the photographer in tomorrow, she said finally. That's all I need. I hung up and sat in the dark for a minute, the room lit only by the glow of my phone screen. In uniform, I don't second-guess decisions once they're made. You assess. You decide. You execute. Family complicates that. Family makes you question whether standing firm equals betrayal. I didn't feel betrayed. I felt clear. Before going to bed, I checked the property portal. Status coming soon. 2 words. Clean. Neutral. I closed the app and set my phone down. In the morning, a lockbox would be installed on a door I hadn't been allowed to enter. The lockbox code came through my phone at 12:14 p.m., followed by a short message from Caroline. Access confirmed. Photos in progress. I pictured the front door open without negotiation this time. Not for me. For a camera. By mid-afternoon, my inbox filled with preview shots. Clean living room. Neutral kitchen. The deck Dad built freshly power-washed. The house looked calm in the photos. It didn't look like the center of a family argument. Caroline called. We're live tomorrow morning, she said. Price is competitive. We'll get traction. Good. Your sister wasn't thrilled. I didn't expect applause. She mentioned buying you out again. Did she make an offer? No. Then it's just talk. There was a pause on her end. You sure you're ready for the noise, she asked. I already heard it. The listing went live at 9:02 a.m. the next day. Within an hour, Lydia texted. You didn't even warn me. We signed the agreement together. You rushed this. You delayed for months. The pattern was predictable now. Frame me as impulsive. Frame herself as cautious. It didn't change the timeline. The refinance proposal started 6 months ago. My refusal was consistent. By noon, showings were scheduled for the weekend. Lydia called again. You're tanking the price. We listed below peak to move it. You don't care if we leave money on the table. I care about resolution. You always do this. You treat everything like a mission. Because drifting doesn't solve anything. She went quiet. You've turned our house into a transaction. It became a transaction when you asked me to sign a loan. Her tone shifted slightly. I was trying to build something, she said. Then build it without tying it to me. Silence. You're punishing me. I'm exiting. Those are different things. That evening, our aunt called. I heard about the house, she began carefully. I figured you would. Is it really necessary? Yes. It just feels drastic. So did being told I needed permission to walk inside. She hesitated. She said you embarrassed her. She changed the locks. A pause. Well, she said finally, I suppose that wasn't ideal. That's as close as I'd get to validation from extended family. The weekend brought on the first wave of showings. Caroline handled scheduling. Lydia agreed to step out during open houses, though she made it clear she resented the inconvenience. Sunday afternoon, Caroline called with an update. We've had good traffic. 2 offers coming in tomorrow. Likely under list. Expected. She's going to want to hold out. She can want. She might push for higher. I'm not stretching this out for pride. You're sure? Yes. Monday morning, the first offer came in 8% under asking. Standard contingencies. 30-day close. The second offer followed 2 hours later. Slightly higher, still below list, with inspection contingency. Caroline forwarded both. I reviewed them between meetings. Both reasonable, neither exceptional. Lydia texted as soon as she saw the notifications. Absolutely not. We can get more. Maybe, but maybe not. The market had cooled slightly in the last quarter. Interest rates had ticked up. Holding out wasn't risk-free. Caroline called to discuss strategy. If we counter modestly, we might meet in the middle, she said. Counter both. Tighten the window. Shorter inspection period. And if they walk, then we reassess. Lydia called within minutes. You're accepting lowball offers now. We're negotiating. You just want this over. Yes. You don't even care what it's worth. I know exactly what it's worth. She scoffed. You're acting like this is some kind of revenge story. I let that one sit for a second. It's not revenge. It's response. You're tearing down the only thing tying us together. If a house is the only thing tying us together, we have bigger problems. She didn't answer that. The counteroffers went out. By late afternoon, one buyer withdrew. The other returned with a revised offer closer to asking, inspection capped at 5 days, flexible close date. Caroline sounded optimistic. This is solid, she said. Clean, motivated buyers. What's your read? They want it. They're not playing games. Lydia's reaction was immediate. We should wait for something higher. For how long, I asked. A few weeks. My leave is over. You don't have to be here. It's not about being here. It's about control. No, I said calmly. It's about closure. There it was again. The word that kept surfacing. She exhaled sharply. You're really going to force this. I'm going to accept a fair offer. You always win, don't you? That caught me off guard. This isn't winning, I said. This is settling. You don't see it. See what? You leave. You come back. You make the call. And I'm the one who stays. Her voice cracked slightly at the end, not dramatic, just human. I didn't choose to stay, I said. You did. That's easy for you to say. We went quiet at the same time. Caroline texted again. They're asking for a response by 6 p.m. I looked at the clock. 4:38. Lydia, I said evenly. This is a fair offer. You're rushing. I'm deciding. If you accept, there's no going back. I thought about the porch. The lock. The word apologize. There wasn't going back that morning, I said. She didn't respond right away. The clock moved to 4:45. I opened the offer on my laptop and hovered over the accept button. Caroline called again. We need your answer, she said. I'm ready, I replied. I clicked accept. The confirmation email came through seconds later. Status changed under contract. My phone vibrated almost immediately. Lydia. You actually did it. Yes. She didn't send anything else. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair. Under contract didn't mean closed. There were inspections, appraisal, paperwork. Plenty of ways for things to unravel. But the decision was no longer theoretical. The house was moving forward without an apology attached to it. The inspection report hit my inbox at 7:12 a.m., right as I was walking into the building. I opened it before I even reached my office. Minor roof wear. Aging water heater. Loose deck railing. Nothing catastrophic. Nothing unusual for a house built in the late 80s. Caroline called 5 minutes later. Overall clean, she said. Buyers asking for a small credit for the water heater. How small? $4,000. I did the math in my head. Reasonable. Accepted, I said. That was quick. I'm not dragging this out over a tank. She laughed lightly. I appreciate decisive sellers. By 9 a.m., Lydia had seen the inspection addendum. You're just agreeing to everything now. It's standard. You're leaving money on the table again. It's $4,000. That's not the point. It was exactly the point. Every concession felt to her like surrender. Every signature felt to me like momentum. At 10:30, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. This is Mark Jensen, the voice said. I'm the buyer. I glanced at the clock. What can I help you with? I just wanted to introduce myself, he said. My wife and I love the house. We're not trying to nickel and dime you. We just want a smooth process. Direct, respectful. I appreciate that, I replied. Same here. We know it's a shared ownership situation, he added carefully. If there's tension, we don't want to add to it. There was a pause. You're not adding to it, I said. I just want you to know we're serious. We're not looking to walk away over minor issues. That's good to hear. After we hung up, I sat there for a second. The buyer sounded calm, grounded, not opportunistic. That mattered more than squeezing another $2,000 out of the deal. At noon, Mr. Mercer called. "I received a message from your sister this morning," he said. "About what?" "She's asking if she can revoke consent to the contract." "Can she?" "Not unilaterally." Both parties signed. Backing out without cause would expose her to legal risk. I leaned back in my chair. "So what's her angle?" "She believes you pressured her." I presented options. "She's considering whether partition litigation would give her leverage." The word litigation carried weight. Not emotional weight. Financial. "If she files partition now," I asked, "what happens?" "It complicates the sale. It signals instability to the buyer. It could delay closing." "Can she stop it?" "Unlikely. But she can make it expensive." "Expensive." "Money tends to clarify priorities." "Would the court force a sale anyway?" I asked. "Yes. Partition by sale is typical when physical division isn't practical. So she'd spend thousands to end up here." "That's correct." I nodded even though he couldn't see it. "Thank you," I said. After the call, I stared at the inspection report again. This wasn't about siding or water heaters. It was about control slipping away. Lydia called shortly after. "You talked to Mercer?" "Yes." "You're threatening me with court now." "I didn't threaten you. You're acting like I don't have options." "You have options," I said calmly. "They're just not better." "That's arrogant." "It's math." She exhaled sharply. "You think I don't know what a partition is?" "I think you know exactly what it is, and you're willing to drag us through that." "I'm willing to let the contract stand." Silence. "You're acting like this is just business," she said. "It is. It's our parents' house." It was. That word landed harder than I intended. "It still is until closing," she snapped. "Legally, yes." "You're cold." "No," I replied. "I'm consistent." She didn't respond right away. "You've never had to sit in that living room alone after a funeral," she said quietly. "You've never had to handle the neighbors asking questions." "I handled it differently," I said. "From wherever I was stationed." "That's not the same." "No, it's not." We both knew that part was true. "You think selling fixes something?" she continued. "It fixes this." "And what if I don't sign the final paperwork?" "You already did." "You know what I mean." "I did." "If you refuse to close," I said evenly, "you're in breach. The buyer can pursue damages. So can I." "You'd sue me." "I'd enforce the contract." She let out a short, humorless laugh. "Unbelievable. It's standard. Everything is standard to you. Standard keeps things from unraveling." That evening, Caroline emailed confirmation that the buyer had wired earnest money. Solid amount. Non-refundable after inspection contingency. Real commitment. The house was no longer theoretical. At 8:17 p.m., Lydia sent another message. "I can't believe you'd take this all the way over pride." I set the phone down for a moment before replying. "This isn't pride, it's boundaries. You're using that word like it makes you right." "It makes me clear." She didn't respond. Later that night, I opened the county property portal and reviewed the status again. Under contract. Pending contingencies. Closing scheduled in 18 days. The number felt concrete. 18 days until signatures became transfers. Until ownership shifted from family to strangers. Until a lockbox was replaced with a new key in someone else's hand. My phone buzzed one more time before I turned in. From Lydia. "You've always cared more about control than connection." I read it twice. Then I typed back. "Connection doesn't require permission to enter the front door." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. The family group chat lit up at 6:42 a.m., right as I was pouring coffee. Aunt Karen. "Is it true the house is under contract?" Cousin Brian. Lydia said it's basically sold. Basically. I stared at the screen for a second before responding. Adrienne. "It's under contract. Closing in a few weeks." The typing bubbles appeared almost immediately. Aunt Karen. "That house has been in the family for decades." Cousin Brian. "Couldn't you two work something out?" Lydia entered the thread. "Lydia, I tried." There it was. Clean, simple, positioned. I didn't fire back. I didn't paste legal language or recount the porch conversation. I kept it direct. "Adrienne. We disagreed on financial decisions. Selling resolves it." Aunt Karen. "It just feels so final." It was. My phone rang seconds later. "Lydia, you couldn't even wait." She opened. "For what?" "For us to talk as a family. We've been talking for months. You went straight to a sale." "I went through process." She let out a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it all morning. "You embarrassed me," she said. "Do you know how many people called asking why my own sister is forcing a sale?" "You told them." I had to explain something. You could have said we agreed. That would be a lie. We signed. That's not the same. No, it wasn't. You've always been like this, she continued. You detach. You make a decision. You move on. I don't detach. I decide. That's worse. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Why is this really about? I asked. It's about you thinking you're above this family. That's not accurate. You act like you don't need us. I don't need permission to own what's mine. She didn't answer that. You're tearing down the last thing that feels stable, she said. The house wasn't stable, I replied. We were arguing about leveraging it. That was opportunity. That was debt. You're afraid of risk. I'm cautious about shared liability. You're impossible. Then why ask me to co-sign anything? Silence. You know what people are saying, she added. I'm sure you'll tell me. They're saying you've always cared more about the army than about us. There it was again. I care about both, I said evenly. But one doesn't require me to shrink. You think I make you shrink? You told me I couldn't enter my own house. You could have apologized. For what? For coming in like you own the place. I do own the place. That's not what I meant. I know. We went quiet at the same time. Later that day, I got a call from my uncle. I'm not taking sides, he began, which is usually how someone takes a side. Understood. But this feels extreme. Refusing to refinance isn't extreme. Selling is. Locking someone out is. He cleared his throat. Lydia said you blindsided her. We discussed it. She says you escalated. I responded. Another pause. You're not even giving her time to process. It's been 6 months. You've always had a way of making things feel like orders, he said gently. I'm not issuing orders, but it feels like it. I thought about that after we hung up. In the army, clarity is respected. In families, clarity can feel like dominance. That evening, I drove past the house on my way back from a meeting. I hadn't done that since the listing went live. The yard looked the same. The for sale sign sat near the curb. Under contract sticker across the top. Seeing it in person hit differently than reading it in an email. My phone buzzed again. Lydia, you drove by. How do you know? Neighbor texted me. I didn't reply. A minute later, if you're going to take everything, at least have the decency not to parade it. I typed back. I didn't take everything, I took half. You destroyed our home. The message sat there. Destroyed. I read it again. Destroyed implies violence. Anger. Wreckage. The house was intact. Roof solid. Deck steady. Under contract. I didn't destroy it, I replied. I sold it. That wasn't enough for her. You erased it. Number 1, I ended a disagreement. You erased our parents. That one stopped me. Selling property doesn't erase people. But grief isn't rational. I didn't erase anyone, I wrote. Memories aren't in the drywall. She didn't answer right away. Instead, another message appeared in the group chat. Lydia. It's basically done. Adrienne made her decision. The tone had shifted. Less accusation. More resignation. Cousin Brian. That's rough. Aunt Karen. I'm sorry it came to this. I didn't respond. That night I sat at my kitchen table reviewing the closing timeline. Appraisal scheduled. Title search complete. No lines. No surprises. Every step clean. My phone buzzed one last time before I turned in. Lydia. You've always cared more about being right than being close. I stared at it for a long moment. Being right and being close aren't opposites. But sometimes they don't overlap. I typed back slowly. I cared about not being locked out. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. I set the phone face down on the table. Outside, the street was quiet. Inside, everything felt steady. The closing packet arrived in my inbox at 8:03 a.m. 27 pages of signatures and disclosures, waiting for clean lines and initials. I opened it before my first meeting. Title transfer documents. Settlement statement. Final payoff numbers. Wire instructions. Nothing dramatic. Just a series of confirmations that a decision had moved from emotional to permanent. Caroline texted shortly after. We're scheduled for 2 p.m. Title office confirmed both sellers attending. Both sellers. That phrasing still felt clinical. At 1:45, I walked into the title company conference room. Neutral walls. Faux wood table. A bowl of wrapped candy no one ever eats. Lydia was already there. She didn't stand up when I entered. She didn't avoid eye contact either. Just a brief nod. Professional. Contained. The buyer and his wife sat across from us. They looked steady, calm. a folder neatly organized in front of them. The closing agent began reviewing documents in a voice that sounded like it had read thousands of similar scripts. Warranty deed, affidavit of title, settlement statement. Papers slid across the table. Pens clicked open. I signed where indicated. No flourish, no hesitation. Lydia signed next. Her movements were precise, controlled. At one point, the closing agent asked if there were any last-minute questions. The buyer shook his head. "Everything looks good," he said. His wife smiled politely in our direction. "Thank you for taking care of the house," she added. I nodded once. Lydia didn't respond. When the final document was signed, the agent gathered the stack neatly. "Congratulations," she said to the buyers. "Recording will happen this afternoon." And just like that, the house shifted ownership. No fireworks, no shouting, just paperwork. Outside in the parking lot, Lydia stopped walking a few feet ahead of me. "You actually went through with it," she said. "Yes. You didn't even hesitate. I thought about it for months. You never told me you were serious. I told you I wouldn't refinance. That's not the same. It led here." She crossed her arms. "You destroyed our home." The same word from this text, destroyed. "It's intact," I replied calmly. "Just owned by someone else." That house was the last piece of Mom and Dad. The last piece was how we treated each other. She stared at me like I'd spoken a different language. "You think this makes you strong?" she asked. "No. You think this proves something?" "It proves I don't need permission to enter my own property." Her jaw tightened. "You couldn't just apologize," she pressed. "Even if you didn't mean it." "No. For the sake of peace." Peace built on a lie isn't peace. Silence stretched between us. "You've always needed the last word," she said quietly. "I didn't start that morning." "That's your version. It's the legal version." She let out a short laugh. Not amused, just tired. "You're impossible." "I'm consistent." She looked toward the building behind us. "I stayed," she said. "I was here every day after they died." "I know. You weren't. I wasn't physically here. That matters." "Yes, it does." We stood there in the parking lot, two adults with matching last names and different definitions of loyalty. "I thought you'd back down," she admitted finally. "Why?" "Because you always leave." That one landed. "I didn't leave," I said. "I built a career. You left me here. I didn't assign you to that." Her shoulders dropped slightly, just enough to notice. "You never understand what it was like," she said. "Maybe not, but selling it," she continued. "That's permanent." So was telling me I couldn't come inside. She looked at me for a long moment. "You really think that's equal?" "Yes." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back at me. "What now?" she asked. "I go back to work. And us." I didn't answer right away. "We're still sisters," I said finally. "That feels thin." "It doesn't have to." She shook her head. "You don't get it." "Then explain it without locking doors." Her expression shifted again. Frustration mixed with something else, maybe exhaustion. "You've always cared more about being right," she said. "I care about being respected." "That's dramatic." "It's basic." She didn't argue that one. A car pulled into the lot. The buyer's probably heading back to collect keys once recording cleared. "You're not even sad," she said. "I'm not relieved either," I replied. "I'm steady." "That's worse. Only if you wanted chaos." She exhaled slowly. "You're walking away without apologizing." "Yes." "You really think you don't owe me one?" "For what?" "For hurting me." I held her gaze. "I didn't hurt you. I disagreed with you." "That's the same thing sometimes." "Not legally." She almost smiled at that. "You hide behind paperwork," she said. "I stand behind it." Another silence. "Recording will process in a couple of hours," I added. "After that, it's done." She looked past me toward the road. "You didn't have to go this far." "Yes," I said evenly. "I did." She didn't respond. The wind picked up slightly in the parking lot. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to move a few leaves across the pavement. "I'll handle clearing out the last of the things," she said after a moment. "Take whatever you want." "I will." I nodded. There wasn't anything else to negotiate. My phone buzzed in my hand. From Caroline. "Recording confirmed. Funds will disperse within the hour." I glanced at the message and slid the phone back into my pocket. The house was no longer ours. Lydia looked at me one more time. "You didn't have to make it this final," she said. I met her eyes without raising my voice. "You did that when you told me I wasn't allowed inside." The wire confirmation hit my account at 3:17 p.m. A clean transfer with a reference number and nothing sentimental attached to it. I stared at the balance for a moment, not because of the amount, but because it represented finality. The equity was no longer theoretical. It was liquid. I transferred a portion immediately retirement account conservative allocation. Another portion paid off the last of my graduate school loan. Clean slate. No shared liability. No property taxes waiting in the wings. My phone buzzed twice. Lydia, it's done. Yes, that's all she wrote. No accusation. No insult. Just acknowledgement. That night the house officially recorded under the buyers' names. Caroline forwarded the confirmation. Congratulations. Smooth closing. Smooth. That wasn't the word Lydia would use. The following week was quiet. No group chat updates. No calls from relatives asking if we'd worked it out. The drama had burned through its oxygen. At work, nothing shifted. I still had reports to review, briefings to lead, a compliance inspection coming up. No one in my unit knew or cared about suburban property disputes. That was the benefit of compartmentalization. On Wednesday afternoon, an email from Lydia landed in my inbox. Subject documents. Attached were scanned copies of a few old items she'd found while clearing out the attic. Dad's discharge papers, Mom's handwritten recipe card for peach cobbler, a faded photograph of the house before the deck was added. No message body, just attachments. I downloaded them without replying. Later that evening, I opened the recipe card. Mom's handwriting tilted slightly to the right. Smudged ink near the corner. I remembered her correcting me when I tried to substitute ingredients. Memory doesn't require ownership of a structure. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then a voicemail notification. Hi, Adrian. This is Mark again. Just wanted to say we moved in. The place is solid. We'll take good care of it. I listened twice before deleting it. The house wasn't being destroyed. It was being lived in. 2 days later, Lydia texted again. Dad's toolbox is still in the garage. Do you want anything from it? Keep what you need. That wasn't what I asked. I considered the question. Take the old torque wrench. The rest is yours. A minute later. Okay. No hostility. No warmth either. Just logistics. On Sunday, I drove past the neighborhood one last time, not out of attachment, but out of routine. The for sale sign was gone. A moving truck sat in the driveway. The new owners were unloading furniture. I didn't stop. My phone vibrated in the cup holder. Lydia, I didn't think you'd actually do it. I pulled into a gas station parking lot before replying. I told you I would. I thought you were bluffing. I don't bluff with paperwork. There was a pause before her next message. You could have handled it differently. How? Another pause. I don't know. Honest. Neither of us had a clean alternative. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table reviewing my updated financial summary. No mortgage exposure. No co-signed obligations. No joint property taxes. Everything aligned under my control. Control. That word again. Was it about control? Number. It was about clarity. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel guilty. I felt steady. On Monday morning during a staff meeting, one of my junior officers asked about a budget allocation. Are we committing to this long term? He asked. If it's aligned with our mission, yes, I replied. If it complicates the mission, no. He nodded, satisfied. Complication without benefit isn't strategy. It's attachment. Later that afternoon, Lydia called unexpectedly. I drove by today, she said. So did I. She let out a quiet breath. They've already changed the landscaping. That was quick. I didn't like it. It's theirs. I know. Silence lingered. I keep thinking about that morning, she said finally. The porch. Yes. You told me I wasn't allowed inside. I know what I said. Then you know why this happened. Another pause. I didn't think you to take it that far, she admitted. That wasn't far. It feels far. It was proportional. You and your proportional responses, she muttered. You and your leverage. She didn't argue that one. I'm not sure what we're supposed to be now, she said. Sisters, I replied. Without the house. Yes, that's different. It doesn't have to be. She didn't answer. You really weren't going to apologize? She asked after a moment. No, not even to keep the peace. Peace that requires admission of fault isn't peace. She exhaled slowly. You're stubborn. Yes, so am I. Yes. For the first time in weeks, there was the faintest trace of shared understanding. I didn't mean to push it that far, she said. I didn't mean to either. But you did. So did you. Silence again. Are you happy? She asked. I'm clear. That's not what I asked. It's the honest answer. She let that sit. I don't think I'll ever agree with you, she said. You don't have to. Another pause. I just didn't think it would end like this. It didn't end, I said. It changed. She didn't respond immediately. Then, I still think you could have apologized. I looked at the message for a long moment before replying. I wasn't wrong. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. I set my phone down after that last message and went back to reviewing the week's training schedule. No dramatic music, no emotional spiral, just another Monday. By the end of the month, the house had fully disappeared from my online property alerts. No more tax notifications, no maintenance reminders, no shared expenses to reconcile. The spreadsheet I'd been using to track everything sat archived in a folder labeled closed. The word fit. Closed doesn't mean erased. It means finished. A week later, I had a junior officer come into my office after a team disagreement. "Ma'am, how do you handle it when someone takes a boundary personally?" he asked. I didn't hesitate. "You don't manage their feelings," I said. "You manage your clarity." He nodded slowly. "And if they think you're wrong, then they're allowed to think that." He left looking relieved. It's funny how often leadership questions sound personal, even when they aren't. That evening, Lydia sent a photo. The buyers had painted the front door navy blue. It used to be dark red. "Did you see this?" she wrote. "Yes. What do you think?" "It's a door." She didn't respond right away. I didn't mean that the way it sounded, she texted a minute later. "It just feels strange. Change always does." Another pause. "I drove by again today." "You don't have to." "I know." There was something different in her tone now. Less accusation. More adjustment. A few days later, she called instead of texting. "I found Dad's old military shadow box," she said. "I thought you might want it. Keep it if you want. It feels more yours." That wasn't what I expected. "I'll take it," I said. We met in a coffee shop halfway between our apartments. Neutral territory. No driveways. No locks. She placed the shadow box on the table between us. The glass had been cleaned. The metals polished. "You didn't have to," I said. "I know." We sat there for a moment without the usual tension. "I keep replaying that morning," she said. "So do I. I shouldn't have said you weren't allowed inside." "No." I was angry. So was I. "But I thought you'd apologize just to end it," she continued. "You always used to." That was true. When we were younger, I'd apologize just to get out of the argument. Even if I wasn't wrong. Even if the issue wasn't mine. It kept things smooth. That habit doesn't age well. "I stopped doing that," I said. "I noticed. You told me to apologize for acting like I outranked everyone." She nodded. "That wasn't fair." "No." She looked down at the table. "I felt like you were dismissing everything I handled when they were sick," she said. "Like it didn't count." "It counted," I replied. "I just didn't agree with refinancing." "I know that now." We both let that sit. "You really weren't going to say sorry," she said again, softer this time. "No." "Even if it meant selling?" "Yes." She studied my face like she was looking for hesitation. "Why?" "Because it would have been a lie." "For what exactly?" "For wrongdoing." "You didn't do anything wrong," she admitted quietly. That was the closest she'd come to saying it outright. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," I said. "I know. You told me I wasn't allowed inside something I legally owned." She winced slightly. "I was trying to force the conversation." "You forced the outcome." She let out a small, almost reluctant laugh. "That sounds like something you'd put in a report." "It's accurate." We sat in silence for a moment. "So this is it?" she asked. "This is what?" "The end of it. It ended when we signed." She looked at the shadow box again. "I still think it could have been different." "It could have," I said. "If you hadn't asked me to apologize." She nodded slowly. "I won't ask you again." "Good." There wasn't bitterness in the exchange. Just acknowledgement. After we finished our coffee, she stood. "Are we okay?" she asked. "We're clear," I replied. "That's your favorite word." "It works." She gave a small shake of her head. "You're impossible." "I'm consistent." This time she almost smiled. As I carried the shadow box to my car, I felt the weight of it in my hands. Not heavy, just solid. Back at my apartment, I hung it on the wall above my desk. Dad's medals reflected the afternoon light. His name engraved beneath them. His service intact, regardless of who owned the house he paid off. My phone buzzed one more time. "Lydia, I still think you could have apologized." I stared at the screen, then typed back. "I wasn't wrong." A minute passed. Then another message from her. "I know." I set the phone down and looked at the wall in front of me. She told me I wasn't allowed in the house until I apologized. I never apologized. And I never needed to. I didn't lose a house. I enforced a boundary. People love to call stories like this revenge stories. Family revenge stories. Family drama. But there was no shouting match in a courtroom. No public humiliation. No grand speech. Just paperwork signatures and a refusal to apologize for something I didn't do. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting someone. It's about refusing to hurt yourself anymore. My sister thought I would fold to keep the peace. I thought she would respect the deed. We were both wrong about each other in different ways. But one thing stayed true: I didn't beg at my own front door. If you've ever been told to shrink yourself for the sake of family, you know this isn't just about property. It's about dignity. It's about not letting someone redefine your role because it makes them more comfortable. And if stories like this, real family drama, real boundaries, real consequences, mean something to you, make sure you subscribe. There are more family revenge stories and hard-earned lessons ahead. Not about chaos, about clarity. Because sometimes the strongest move isn't loud, it's final.